Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is David Novak. I try not to watch too many of Steve Donahue's videos because I always wind up buying something. And this, I am sure, is something that I saw on his channel very recently. The package is all wet. It's a rainy evening in Chicago. In the old days, you would have snow possibly, but not rain in December, this close to Christmas. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. Profile of Horace. Wow, gorgeous shape. Possibly a library book. Beautiful, and really it should be in a library. I had not known about it. Shackleton Bailey did this. It's a really good biography to read along with Cicero's letters, which he translated if you are inclined to do that. So I just came off of watching Troy Tradup's video, and it seems to me he's assessing 1 year of BookTube, and I really delight in his channel. I think partly because he's about in my age group, and so much of what he has to talk about resonates with me. And I think that a lot of booktubers around this time are taking a little bit of a hiatus for the holidays. I intend to make this my last video until, say, January 2nd, something like that. Although I don't hold myself to commitments like that. If something pops up and I feel like breaking that, it's not like I'm going on a retreat somewhere. And I'm sure that in the community tab, I will continue to post little excerpts from the books that I'm reading. That's a long-standing habit that I've had even on Facebook for over a decade. Just if a sentence or a paragraph jumps out at me, whether I agree or disagree, I like to write it out and think about it and share it with other people who might like to think about it as well. So I intend to continue that most likely. If you've been following my channel, there's probably not too much that you will be missing by me not posting for the holiday period. I'm reading 3 books right now. 2 of them are rereads: John Kenneth Galbraith, The New Industrial State, and Cheaper by the Dozen, by a couple of Gilbreth children. And the book just made mention finally that the name Gilbreth is a late corruption of Galbraith. And then because one day I was sitting down and could not get up to grab either of those books, I went to my library and got O Pioneers by Willa Cather. I recently picked this up because I saw it for a steal. And my goal, if possible, is to finish reading the 3 books before the end of the year. I was thinking that I had to read 2 chapters a day of this in order to accomplish that. I was wrong. It's 3 chapters a day. The chapters are not overly long, so it's just a matter of my getting up the gumption to do it. And I'm hoping to. I would ideally like to finish all of this. These will take care of themselves. I'm very near the end of the Gilbreth family. And Cather, I'm over halfway, and it's a short novel. So this is the really hard one that I've got to focus on. And I think if I do, I will. The others will take care of themselves. And I don't feel that I particularly need to keep posting readings from this book, so you won't miss that. The end of the year, as far as my reading, has gone in a way that I completely did not expect. And it looks like January is going to be starting out in a way that I did not expect. It's been a tough time since around Thanksgiving in this household. Just a lot of awful stuff going on. We're sort of past the major chunk of that, although I have something going on with my ear right now. And tomorrow I will go to the clinic and somebody at least will look and tell me what is the status. It can go either way. I've had really bad things and then I've had just false alarms, but it's something that I don't want to take lightly. And I'm in a bit of pain, so I'm a bit unbalanced. I'm not really feeling very much pain right now, but I wanted to bid my end of the year adieu. And what I mean by the year ending up in a way that I didn't expect was this intense focus on capitalism. The Willa Cather story, at least so far, the main protagonist at the start is leading a hardscrabble existence and watching her father die, and then sets up a program to buy up all the property. And so there's a very capitalistic undertone to it. And of course, there is very capitalistic undertones to both of these books as well. I love Galbraith's writing, and this is a good book, but ultimately what he is talking about is the corporation. And so I really question myself. I read this at, I think, the age 19 and didn't understand anything. I understand a lot more now, but what I question now is any of this worth understanding? I've spent time here and there working in the lower depths of one corporation or another. That experience was completely lacking when I first attempted this. This is actually a revised edition, which was published after I first read it. So I kind of wish I had the old mass market paperback. He definitely revises and updates to reflect the times. And I think this is 85, and I would have been reading it at the time that Ronald Reagan was firing the air traffic controllers. I had a friend at the movie theater that we worked at who was a big Reagan fan and suggested we try to read this. It never came out to be a buddy read all that well, but I'm glad I read it, and it set up a track in my life that I would not walk back, but I'm wondering if I really need to go this route much longer. And then you have the Gilbreths. And while Galbraith is giving me a whole new experience after 40 years or whatever it has been, this book, which I read in grammar school, most likely, there is nothing in the book at all which is new, nothing different. My reaction is exactly the same as it had been. And the experience changed sort of dramatically for me a couple of days ago. In this internet age, in this YouTube age, I realized that some of the movies that Gilbreth made might be available on YouTube, and indeed they were. And I watched some of them. Now, he was a motion study expert, and it's added a whole underlay to this book that I never had when I was a kid. You're supposed to take it as a cute memoir, and it is that. The authors certainly loved their father, and that comes through. But as an outsider, it's impossible not to see him otherwise. A friend of mine despised this book when she read it, and I do not despise the book by any means. As I say, my experience is completely unchanged, except for watching those movies. And I realized, I will put a link to some of that in the description box, that the reason he was making so much money was because he was hired by all of these companies, corporations, if you will, to figure out ways to wring more work out of their workers. And so the videos show clearly the types of jobs that he was intervening on. And so if somebody was doing something with one hand, well, he came up with the idea that they could use two hands. As somebody who spent 10 to 15 years when I first moved into the city in extremely low-level jobs, I joined the temp workforce just as it was transitioning away from temp work, as it was called. It used to be somebody would go on vacation and they would need somebody to fill in for a week or 2 weeks, and that was temp work. Well, by the time I got in, it was rather different. It became contingent work, and you found yourself in all kinds of vast emporiums with all kinds of possibly even grueling labor going on, performed by people like myself, who at the time was not making more than $7 an hour. I don't retain any of those check stubs. Now, I was in a fortunate situation. I had a friend when I moved into the city who said, the one thing you absolutely have to do is get a place with cheap rent. You can't put yourself in a situation where you're giving up three quarters of your income to the landlord. And a lot of people do that in the city even today. And so I got a place. When I moved in, it was $250 a month. But very shortly thereafter, it went up to $285 a month, paying my own heat. But you can calculate $7 an hour. I was able to work less than the norm. There have been few weeks, except for certain years in my life, when I've put in a full 40-hour week of labor. But I was never super good at getting jobs, so contingent work worked for me because you would just get sent to a place. But I had some rules. There's a cat playing with a bag over there. I would not stay in any one position for longer than 6 months. So no matter how comfortable it was, when the 6-month mark came along, I would leave it. A lot of places, of course, did not want you for that long. It was just for 3 months or whatever. And I would often leave before 6 months. It had to have been a fairly comfortable situation for me to keep me there for 6 months. But regardless, I would leave. And in that time also, this 10 or 15 years, whatever it was, I also did take jobs all over the place that were permanent jobs, but I treated them as temporary jobs. And so I would be hired and then I would leave. I would leave on whatever pretext moved me at the moment. And for some reason, watching some of the tasks that were filmed by Gilbreth, I found it obscene watching these people working like that. But some of the tasks that are being performed in the video are very similar to many of the jobs that I had. And indeed, we were expected to work fast and in some cases, I think, do quotas, fill quotas. I moved into data entry, and thankfully, when I did that, it was before it got to a phase where your keystrokes were being counted. Later on, I knew other of my colleagues who were in that boat, and that seemed terrible. I never had fast typing, but I was pretty good as far as not making mistakes. So there was some demand for that. And one job that I remember came back to me in my mind, and I was working, it was through the Evanston office of the temp agency, but I have no idea where it was. They sent you all over regardless. It may well have been Northside Chicago, and I don't remember the company. And it was putting labels or typing out address labels, not actually affixing them to anything. But it was not done on a typewriter, the old Selectric or whatever, and it was not done on a computer. It was some weird kind of machine specific to that purpose, and I can't remember it anymore. There was some kind of lever that had to come down, and I found out pretty quickly that they had tried several other people before me, and none of them could manage to get it right. They just flubbed up right and left, and so the company was not getting the tasks done, neither with the speed nor with the precision that they wanted. And so when I started and I got the hang of this weird machine, I was never oblivious, and so I would hear people in the background talking, and they were all real excited. Oh, he's getting it. Look at how he's doing. You know, they were all real excited because I was doing the task and not flubbing up. Well, the boss of the department was a real hard-nosed woman, and they were not permitting me to have a break, and I was under the impression, wrongly, that Illinois law had guaranteed laborers 2 20-minute breaks during a full day's shift. That was not the case, but I had a friend who worked in temp jobs and was not above fighting for her rights, so to speak, and would rely on bluff. Well, bluff has never worked too well for me, and this woman knew what the law was, and she said no. She said, nope, you don't get one, that's the law. And so being myself, I think at lunch I went out somewhere and stewed about it. And then when I came back, I sat there doing nothing for an hour or so. I mean, when you do this kind of work, you know how to not work when it suits you. It's something that you learn on the job. And so I just sat there stewing. And I don't recall if I had called the office or I did afterward, but at some point I went into the woman's office and I said, you know, excuse me, I'm just not feeling very well. I've got to go home. I think I'm a little bit ill today. And I left. And then I think then I called up the office, and I had a good track record with this office, and so they were not going to question me, or they were not going to argue with me. But I think at that point I quit using that agency and went to another one regardless. Well, so yesterday my ear was just crazy, and I couldn't sleep. And not only that job, but every job that I ever had in that window, and some that were without that window. I mean, before I moved into the city, I had a few jobs, you know, theaters, restaurants. And then after the jobs that I had, it's not like when I left the contingent workforce, I segued into highfalutin positions. And I had all of these thoughts just ramming in all of the different jobs. I worked in hospitals. I worked in religious organizations. I worked in banks. There's factories. I worked in the office of factories. So, I mean, and the tasks in most of these places were tasks that showed signs, let's say, of the Gilbreth mark. I mean, you were having to be there rigorously in these jobs. I was young and I could handle it, I thought. And it really overwhelmed me last night. I felt, I think, what people call PTSD. And so many of these placements or jobs had their own stories that were harrowing or what have you. But just the cumulative remembrance of all of these tasks felt nightmarish to me. And in part, I blame the Gilbreths, who were out living their lives, floating their boat in Nantucket and whatnot. And they have helped to restructure the workforce so that for people like me and for people like some of the subjects in the films that Gilbreth took, the low-paid job became so much more arduous, and those extra profits from the extra efficiency did not go into the laborers' pockets. They went into the capitalists' pockets, and we know that. So I remember, I have not gotten to the point, but it closes. Somebody once asked Dad, you know, why do you want to save all that time for? And Dad kind of shrugged and answered, well, for playing pinochle, if that's what you love. Well, I knew that was kind of stupid even then. But now I understand he was not getting paid so that people could have more time to play pinochle. He had more time to play pinochle. That's what he did. But these workers whose lives he was manipulating did not wind up with more time to play pinochle or what have you. And don't get me wrong, I do believe in the virtues of efficiency. And the Gilbreths, I don't know that it's in here, but they came up with, possibly his wife after he died at age 50 or something, and she carried on, came up with innovations that we are grateful for today. The wastebasket that has a foot pedal. I mean, it's something indispensable in the kitchen here with the amount of cooking we do, you know, and he came up with, or his wife came up with, the notion that when a doctor is in surgery, that he should not be spending all this time hunting for the next implement, the scalpel or what have you. There should be a trained person there, and he should just say, I want scalpel number 4, whatever. And I think any of us who have been in the hospital for surgery or whatever are glad that some of these innovations have taken place. But the tenor of these jobs that I worked for these 10 or 15 years, whatever it was, as I say, PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, was the only way that I could describe the feelings that I was going through last night. I didn't know that I could relive everything so viscerally like that and all at once. I, of course, am not in a position now where I need to do that kind of work or much work at all. But the idea that all of this has left its deep imprint upon me is troubling. And so this notion of ending my year so decidedly focused on the workforce, working, capitalism, making money out of the land, it's really not where I want to go with my reading. And I had sworn I would not do any Russian reading, Russian novels. I was saying something to that effect less than 24 hours ago on Alan Facer's channel in the comments. He had just finished Anna Karenina and talking marvelously about Tolstoy. He did War and Peace not that long ago. And then at some point, I don't know if it was last night or today, I happened to turn on Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics, I think. And he mentioned that he read War and Peace, I think this year, and he plans to reread it in January with Mark at Book Time with Elvis. And I thought, maybe I should do that. I mean, Tolstoy, say what you will about him, at least we know he is an artist. Memoir is not art. And even though Galbraith is a wonderful prose stylist and his work has artistic flourishes, economics is not art. And so, sort of to honor myself, I am seriously thinking about trying War and Peace. I have it in the, is this the Everyman's Library edition, which I bought some years ago because I liked the fact that it was in 3 volumes. I didn't want to be holding a cumbersome book. And I read volume 1, I don't know exactly when, 4 years ago maybe, and got 200 pages in, and then just fell apart and couldn't proceed any further. But I feel that part of what I have been trying to do with this reading project has been to tackle some of these unmet ambitions, unfulfilled ambitions in the bookish realm that I've so far been a slacker on. And so I've really seriously thought, I know at this point, after almost 2 full years of reading pretty solidly, I know that my ability to stick to the book will be there. That is not a question. It is merely a question of how long it will take. I think Alan and Mark are talking about doing it for 5 or so weeks. I have these. It makes sense to jump in. So with that, I want to say thank you for stopping by my channel. If something comes up that I feel like I need to break in and do a video, I will, or I just feel like it. I'm in a position where making a video is really no skin off my teeth. I don't do fancy editing. It's just a matter of propping the camera well or poorly as it may be, and then pressing the button. But I feel that it's a good idea to give myself and give you a break, especially given the turn these last books have taken. If anything, I could consider, if I finish these 3 before the year end, to do a recent reads video, just so I could wrap that up during this year, as opposed to taking it into calendar next year. Happy holidays. Again, thank you very much for stopping by my channel.